Now, the rest of the story. And it's going to be a mystery story, a real-life mystery story. I'm going to tell you first how it ends. It's important that you know so that you can keep the facts straight in your mind. The colonel was married, but he also had a mistress. In fact, the colonel was just about to leave his wife for this other woman when his wife decided to kill him. You have this now? It's important. The colonel's wife wants to do away with her husband, so she conceives the perfect crime. The wife would make it appear as though her husband, the colonel, had murdered her and let the authorities do the rest. The colonel would be tried, convicted, executed. Then his wife could turn up later with feigned amnesia. Perfect crime, right? And mystery buffs, please don't feel cheated because you know more than you should, because despite all that you've heard, you'd never, ever guess the rest of the story. One frosty night, December 1926, a car was found at the bottom of a chalk pit in Newlands Corner, England. Inside that car was a fur coat belonging to the colonel's wife. The woman had disappeared. The police did suspect murder. The colonel himself was interrogated. Where had he been on the night in question? Well, the colonel explained he'd been at a dinner party. What was the occasion? The colonel appeared embarrassed because the dinner party was, well, for himself and his lady friend. They were going to announce their engagement. The detectives looked at each other. Was the colonel at the party all evening? No, he had received a telephone call from his wife. She'd gotten wind of what was going on and was about to come to the party to make a scene. Naturally, the colonel had to go home for a while to calm his wife. Did he? Well, yes, the colonel went home, but nobody was there. So he returned to the party. Had the colonel and his wife been on good terms prior to her disappearance? Well, yes and no. Well, not exactly. They'd had their disagreements. In fact, they'd had quite a row the morning before the dinner party about the colonel's lady friend. If the detectives prejudged the colonel guilty, you can imagine why. Because his testimony was terribly incriminating. Meanwhile, a force of 2,000 was organized to search a 40-square-mile area for the missing body. The authorities dragged the deep water hole near the chalk pit where the car was found. Tracking dogs and light planes scoured the area. Publicity mounted steadily. The London newspapers were calling the incident the crime of the century. The Daily News offered £100 for any information leading to the solution of the mystery. And who is being asked not to leave town? The colonel, of course. Obvious motive. The mistress involvement. No alibi. And, of course, you knew he didn't do it. You knew his wife was hiding out, waiting for her husband to be convicted of murder and sent to the gallows. You knew because I told you. But there's something you didn't know. The colonel's wife had figured everything out. She'd left the ignition keys off when she pushed the car into the pit so police would know that it was pushed and not driven. She'd even left a fur coat in the car. It was very cold that night, remember? So when investigators found it, they would not suspect that she had left the scene herself. Yes, the colonel's wife had figured it all out, except for one thing. There was no place she could hide. 12 days after her disappearance, her famous face was recognized on the other side of England. For not only was the colonel's wife well known, but she, of all people, should have been able to get away with murder. For the colonel's wife, the real-life almost murderess, was the author of fiction's most successful whodunits. She was the mistress of mystery, Agatha Christie. And now you know the rest of the story.
And now the rest of the story. Regardless of how well she planned it, Agatha Christie was just too famous to get away with staging her own murder. Here's what happened. At around 10 o'clock on a cold Friday night, December 3rd, 1926, 36-year-old Agatha Christie drove away from her home in Sunningdale, England, following an argument with her husband, Archie. All day Saturday, family and friends tried to locate Agatha, but were unsuccessful. On Sunday, a young boy found a car hanging precariously over the edge of a cliff above a deep chalk pit near Guildford. Police arrived and searched the car. Inside, they found women's clothing, a fur coat, a leather case with some papers inside, and Agatha's driver's license. Police searched the chalk pit, nearby houses, woods, and ponds, but found no trace of Agatha. The investigators returned to Agatha's home and spoke with her husband, as Mr. Harvey explained. Archie said that Agatha had suffered from nervous prostration. She was a very nervous case. He told detectives that he left before Agatha and that it was unlike her to go for a drive that time of the night alone. "The only explanation I can give," Archie said, "is that she is suffering from loss of memory. My wife had a serious nervous breakdown last spring and had recuperated in France." Archie explained that Agatha's nervous breakdown was due to the death of her mother. Many people believed that Agatha had committed suicide. Only days before, Agatha had remarked to a family member that, "Unless I can get away from Sunningdale, it will be the end." Before leaving home on Friday night, Agatha wrote a letter to her husband, which police said amounts to a tragic farewell message, indicating that the end has been reached and she was resolved to sacrifice everything and commit some drastic act. Agatha left her husband's letter unsealed, along with a sealed letter which was only to be opened in the event that her body was found. Family and friends told investigators that Archie and Agatha's home life appeared to be happy. Together they had one child, a young daughter named Rosalind. However, the couple's marriage was far from happy, as Mr. Harvey explained. 4 months earlier, Archie told Agatha that he wanted a divorce because he had fallen in love with another woman, Nancy Neal. On the day of Agatha's disappearance, Archie told Agatha that he planned to spend the weekend with his mistress. By the third day of the search, the number of people searching for Agatha grew from just a few policemen to hundreds of volunteers. Some of the searchers used bloodhounds, but none of the dogs picked up the slightest scent. Policemen and volunteers widened the search. Pilots in 2 aeroplanes, spelled in newspaper articles AERO planes, joined the search and flew low over the area. Searchers dragged every pond and searched all of the woods for miles around. Unable to search through thickets, one farmer used his tractor to cut paths into dense woodlands. A potential witness came forward and told investigators that she had heard screams near her home, a short distance away from the search area. Volunteers and policemen searched the area and dragged the nearby stream, but all of their searches proved fruitless. Several searchers focused their efforts on a pond near where the young boy found Agatha's car, a pond locally referred to as Silent Pool. Near the abandoned car, searchers found a tin can with a note inside which read, "Ask Candle Lanche. She knows more about the Silent Pool." Investigators were unable to determine who Candle Lanche was, or even if the note was directly related to Agatha's disappearance. Local legends persisted that the pond was bottomless. For several days and nights, searchers dropped grappling hooks from long ropes into the murky waters of Silent Pool, but found nothing. By this point, searchers held out little hope that Agatha was still alive and expected to recover her body at any point. So far, Agatha's plan was working. Scotland Yard detectives received only the vaguest clues, spelled C-L-E-W-S, about Agatha's actions after leaving her house following the argument with Archie. A gravel pit worker told police that at about 6:20 on the morning after Agatha drove away from her home, he helped Agatha start her car near where the young boy found it abandoned. The farmer said Agatha's head was bare and her hair was covered with frost. Her teeth chattered with the cold and her manner was distressed. Once the car started, Agatha drove away. The young boy found Agatha's car 2 hours later. 2 men saw Agatha's photograph in area newspapers and told police that they saw a woman resembling Agatha around noon 3 days after she went missing. The woman had, as they said, a vacant look in her eyes and was walking rapidly toward London. Police found no other potential witnesses. Just when almost everyone had accepted that they would never find Agatha alive, there was a glimmer of hope. Archie's brother, a resident of London, received a letter from Agatha which was dated after her disappearance. In this letter, Agatha wrote that she had been ill and was going to a spa in Yorkshire for treatment. Based on this letter, police suspended the search for Agatha's body. However, they still needed to find Agatha to ensure that she was alive and well. On December 14, 1926, a maidservant at a health spa in Harrogate, some 230 miles north of where Agatha's abandoned car was found, she contacted police. She reported that photographs of Agatha in the newspapers looked similar to a guest in the spa who registered as Miss Teresa Neal of Cape Town, South Africa. Neal, detective noted, was the surname of Archie's mistress. The guest in question arrived on the evening of December the 4th, the day Agatha's abandoned car was discovered. The guest was popular at the hotel. She sang, danced, played billiards, and went into town every day. The guest seemed perfectly normal. The only reason that maid service contacted police was that the guest so closely resembled photographs of the missing woman. Archie drove to the health spa to see if it really was Agatha. Archie recognized Agatha immediately, but Agatha did not recognize Archie as her husband. At first, Agatha thought Archie was just an acquaintance whose identity she did not quite fix. That was the quote. After they spoke for a while, she recognized a closeness with Archie but thought he was her brother. Archie explained that he was her husband and that they had a daughter. Agatha had no memory of either. After their discussion, Archie told reporters, "There is no question of her identity. She is my wife. She's suffering from complete loss of memory. She does not know who she is. We are hoping to take her to London tomorrow to see doctors and specialists, and we are hoping that with rest and quiet she will be fully restored." Within a few months, Agatha's memory recovered. Well, mostly. Although she lived another 50 years, she was never able to explain her disappearance. She always claimed to have no memory of the event. She and Archie divorced. A week after the divorce was finalized, Archie married Nancy Neal. Agatha continued her career as a writer, and 4 years after her disappearance, married an archaeologist. In her career, which spanned several decades, Agatha wrote 66 detective novels, many of which revolved around fictional detectives Miss Marple and Hercule Poirot. She also authored 14 short story collections, 6 romance novels, several plays, one of which is the world's longest-running play entitled The Mousetrap. Agatha is the best-selling novelist of all time, with sales over 2 billion books in many languages. Do you think Agatha really lost her memory? Or did she fake the memory loss as part of a clever Plan B, which she would use if her original plan failed? I'm Brad Dison. As Paul Harvey would say, good day.